There. We learned Lili Nishmat, I think Avram ben Rachalea Mer Tzvi. On the table there, cookies that make a bracha in Lili Nishmato, is just his yard site, and also for Tzvi ben Eliyahu as well, one for his Lili Nishama. Oh, and also this Shabbat is the Rosh Hashiva's yard site. I have you, if you remember the name, you just tell it to me. It's okay, I remember. So Rav Nachum Eliezer, that I remember. Ben. Okay, it'll come up. That's okay. Yeah, I'll find it here. Ben Sarah Miriam ve Itamar. Okay. When he passed away, we know it was during Corona, and which many people, myself included, watched the Levaya online, couldn't be there. And the truth of the matter is, I'm sure he was happy, so to speak, about that's his personality. Very modest, very didn't like any fuss. Exactly. I tell you a very brief story since it'll be his yard side, it's a 1 minute story. I would consult with him. Sometimes I got still do, but some very heavy questions that way above my pay grade. I know what I know, and I know where I have to go for consult. So I would go to the yeshiva and ask him some questions. And one time he said to me, "How do you get all these crazy questions?" Okay, fine, whatever. And one time I just had a stam quote, stam halach question. He was in Pnei Shmuel. I sat down next to him after davening, and I started asking him a question. He goes like this. I said, "What?" He said, "Is this a halacha question?" Yes. Points to Rav Aviner. There's the Rav of the shul. Don't ask me. Outside the shul, you can ask me. Not inside the shul. Yeah. Yeah. That was who he was. A tzaddik. Okay. We are going to look at the second half of Mishnah number 10 in chapter 3. So it's Mishnah Yud, second half, Perek Gimel. It starts with the words Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas Omer. Now, I'm going to, next week, hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, I'll give you a little biography about who he was. Interesting individual, but I wanted to get into the Mishnah first because there's a specific topic I want to speak about today having to do with Mishnah, and then we'll go back to his biography. Last time when we met, the first half of the Mishnah was about being a mensch. Bottom line, be a good person. It's not you're not serving as an Oved of Hashem if that's all you do. Just being a good person, it's not sufficient. We know that. Because a person's nice to people doesn't make them an Eved Hashem. You do mitzvot, but it's an integral part because doing mitzvot and not being a good person, not being a mensch, that's catastrophic. Because that's antithetical to Torah. Derech Kodma Torah. Derech comes before the concept of Torah. Even there's more meanings than that. But so the second half of the Mishnah deals with another topic, which I think we can all relate to. But on the surface, it sounds like, what are you talking about? Okay, let's take a look at the Mishnah. I read it like the lines last time and translated, but let's look at it. We're going to go into a little more in depth. Okay, Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas Omer, Sheina shel shacharit, sleeping in the morning. Drinking wine in the afternoon. The Sichat HaYeladim, right now I'm just going to translate that as conversing with kids. Okay, and I'm leaving it kind of nebulous right now for a reason. Vishivat Bate Knesiot Shalamei Haaretz, and sitting, it sounds like sitting in shul with a bunch of boors, although that's not what it means. All those four things, Motzi'in et ha'adam min ha'olam, remove the person from the world, which world we'll see. But it sounds like pretty strong stuff. That means, it sounds like, and I said this last time, that if I decide to sleep in because I came home late from a wedding, or I'm working on taxes till 4 o'clock in the morning and I need to sleep in, right? That's pretty strong. Drinking, I'm going out to lunch with somebody. I don't do this, but if I were to go out to lunch at a nice fancy restaurant and have a glass of wine, I sit in the park and talking to the kids. What is going on here? So we cannot take it on surface, on face value. Obviously not. So we'll do a little bit of backing up. These things we understand are not averot by themselves, obviously. It's not only they're not averot, not only not wrong, they're all good things in a sense, right? Sleeping is important, we need it. drinking wine is vayayin samach levavanosh. It's something we use it for mitzvot. We use it for bringing happiness and gladness into life. Talking to children, what the heck is wrong with that? It's a good thing. Sitting around having conversations also can be good things. It's part of society. So what really is going on here? So the first way to answer all this, and we're going to kind of take it down this path, is one word. Actually, we're going to deal with two words today. One is moderation, and the other is time. We'll talk about moderation first. I like coffee. There's a store, but there was a coffee shop in Yerushalayim on Avot. It moved closer to Davidka, called You Need Coffee. So there's a guy I know who says whatever's on his mind, a little bit older than me. He was in a convenience store in the United States, in a convenience store, and there was a woman in front of him. And she said to the clerk, I need those cigarettes. She's pointing to, I need those cigarettes, and I want some water. So he tapped her on the shoulder, literally tapped her, and says, ma'am, you need the water and you want the cigarettes. Okay. So I like coffee. I have usually generally 2 cups a day. That's it. I know some people who have 5, 6, 7, 8 cups a day. That's fine. That's their business. Okay. I don't particularly, I like wine. I like beer. I don't have them often. But when I do, I'll have a beer or a glass of wine. Nothing wrong with that. When it becomes a problem is if person is an alcoholic. There's nothing wrong with needing, God forbid, if someone needs it, taking some what's it called? Percocet or whatever it might be, some other drug that's necessary to make them healthy. When they get addicted to it, that becomes a problem. When a person needs sleep, they need sleep. There's no question. Sleeping in is not a problem if a person needs sleep. We'll see what the problem is soon. If it becomes a constant, the person's that's their life. They just want to sleep. They don't have much purpose. They just sleep and sleep and sleep. Again, talking with children, especially parents and children, critical. The conversations that people can have. So we start with the idea of moderation. That all these things are good, but in moderation. Now, what does that mean? Okay, what do you mean it's in moderation? How much you talk to children, what you drink? We'll see. We'll take a look. The phrase "motzi'in et ha'adam min ha'olam," they take the person out of the world. Now, I'm going to leave off to the side for a moment. What does it mean? What world are we talking about? Is it this world? Is it olam haba? Just use this expression generally. It appears 2 other places that we've dealt with already. And in those cases, the things that take a person out of this world are actually very negative, and it's not a matter of moderation. We've seen already jealousy, lust, and a desire to be honored take a person out of this world. It's a little jealousy is also not a good thing. It's not as bad as someone who's constantly jealous. Sometimes you'll find within siblings that one was successful, one wasn't, or mommy loved you more than the other. Obviously my mom loved me more than my brother and sister. That's one thing we never felt, ever. The sibling rivalry, jealousy, chas v'shalom, never. It's nothing to be jealous of. We all felt what we had, what we needed. But it happens. And so kinat tava, what does it mean? Adam min olam. So years ago, when I was giving a series of shiurim at Rivka Rena's and Michael's house on Motzei Shabbat, did this in the winter for a number of years. So I gave a talk and mentioned, I don't remember the source off the top of my head. So it's a very scary thing what this means in this particular case. It's not just that someone who's filled with tava or kina, jealousy, or always looking for kabod, it takes them out of this world because it causes them, physical and emotional turmoil, but they accompany them into the next world to actually go with them. They're still in the next world. They'll still see. We saw this in the beginning of Mesilat Yesharim, that how is appealing to the base instinct of a person. How are you going to pass? A person's going to pass away. They go to the Olam Haba, and they're going to see that they're the guy who was just, the shlub down the street. He's got this high place in Olam Haba, and you're a big Torah scholar, big deal. You're nothing because all you want is kavod. You're down this lowly guy. You're going to be jealous. It's going to even be there in the next world. So those are bad things. They're not in moderation. The other thing we saw was ayin hara sinat habriot. Having an evil eye, again, doesn't just mean evil. It means looking at things always negatively. And hatred of brio, of creation, of people. Again, it's a very negative. It's not like, well, I'll have just a little bit of hatred or a little bit of ayin hara. So those things. But in our Mishnah, we're dealing with things that, again, on the surface, they're not so bad. And not only not so bad, they're very positive in some cases. There's additional difference between this Mishnah and the others that use that same phrase. It's a similar idea, but slightly different. Those characteristics are midot that you should run far away from. You don't want, there's nothing wrong with having a good, not wrong, it's a good to have a good self-image. You should feel good about yourself. When you think you're God's gift to mankind, unfortunately, I've dealt with a few of those. That's what ends up with failed marriages sometimes. God's gift to man or to women, and or you are. I have seen people destroyed by needing kavod. They just need to be important. They need to be in the spotlight. And the word kavod, the shorish is kaf bet daled, which means kaved. It's heavy. It's a weight. It's a weight on a person. I told you the story. I know I did. I'm sure, but it really typifies. The story took place before my bar mitzvah. So this is what an impact it made on me. I was sitting in shul next to my father. I was here. He was here. The bima was right here. It's a Shabbat morning. There was a guy in the community who thought a lot of himself. He was a macher, and he got called up for Revi'i, the fourth aliyah. Now, the ones that are honored type of aliyot are the third aliyah and the sixth aliyah. By Sfaradim, it's the seventh aliyah. He got called up for the fourth. And he said in Yiddish, what bracha do you make on Revi'i? He said it out loud. He was walking up. My father turned to me and says, never forget that. And I haven't. You're talking over 50, 60, almost 60 now, 60, 55, 60 years ago almost. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And it really taught me a lesson early on. What you need to seek out kavod, what it does to you. It eats you up. Those are midot you want to stay away from. You want to do the opposite. You want to be shvaluach. You want to be humble. Even if a person has what to be proud, be full of haughtiness. Again, the difference between being proud and being filled with haughtiness is a very big difference. Where it comes to our Mishnah, though, the essence is not a bad thing. It really is not, because there's absolutely nothing, unless a person's alcoholic or a person's allergic or whatever the problem, or diabetic. Having wine is fine. It's good. It's a nice thing. It's good for the body. But again, it's excess. Excess, motzina tadamina olam. So there's also a lack. Speaking of coffee, huh? So these things: sleeping late, wine in the afternoons, sichat yiladim, hanging out. These are things that are known as Adam Dash Ba'akevav. What does that mean? At the beginning of Parshat Ekev, it says, V'haya Ekev Tishme'u. If you will listen to my mitzvot and do da. So Rashi says, what does it mean, V'haya Ekev? The word, like in English, Hebrew, you say, Be'ikvot zot. In light of this, or because of that. So what is Ekev? Ekev is also your heel. So Rashi says, there's a mitzvot Shadam Dash Ba'akevav. The mitzvot that a person steps on. What does it mean? They shot. Big deal, right? Oh, basar machalav, meat and milk, God forbid. I didn't check my broccoli. I'm sure it's fine. Well, it's not fine because the last 50 years you haven't been able to have DDT, so it's full of bugs for sure. 100%. Baduka munusat's gonna be full of bugs. Raw broccoli, unless you get bodeg and all of it. So those are mitzvot. There are mitzvot that a person just kind of says, it's not the most important thing to me. These areas, some of the commentaries say, also fall to that. So it's wine. What's the big deal about wine? So I want to sleep a little late. And the truth is, yeah, what's the big deal? Once in a while, it's a psychological game. I'll come home late from a wedding, let's say. I'll say, okay, you know what? I tell Andy, I'm just going to sleep. I'm not setting the alarm. I still wake up early, 9 times out of 10. But in my head, I'm allowing myself to sleep. So I'll sleep a little. I'll go to later. Maybe big deal. But what is the real danger? What is the potential problem here that says Mutzi'ina tadamin olam? First of all, let's talk about what olam. What olam are we talking about? What world? So there's two possibilities. One is olam hazeh, and one is olam haba. This world, that the more a person is involved in drinking, person's involved in all they're doing is wasting their time just chatting with the kids or whatever it might be in this Mishnah, eventually it causes you to have some problems. We'll see what that means shortly. And then it affects the time of you that a person has here in this world. Others say, no, it means olam haba, that affects their position in olam haba. It takes them out of one area and puts them in a different area. Now, again, we talk about olam haba. I gave shiurim on this past. It's not a physical place; it's spiritual. I mean, we all, myself included, picture a place, but because that's how our minds work, we can't picture something spiritual per se. When Tanya talks about that, there's 500 years between the different levels of the Shemayim. Like, what does that mean? I don't know. But in any case, so it could be that it's olam haba, and that there are, in fact, we know that's different levels. Because we say, for example, we just said the neshama should have an aliyah. His soul should have an uplifting. What does that mean? It's a higher level of Gan Eden, etc. That's what that means. But it could mean this world. The Rambam says, these kinds of things, these actions, the drinking wine in the afternoon. Again, I'm talking about not in moderation. Drinking wine in the afternoon, talking to children, which we'll see what that really means, sleeping late. These prevent a person from growth, and it also eradicates their status. I'll explain that. Ad sheyetze min ha'olam v'hu aved. What does that mean, ma'alat adam? What does it mean, ma'alat adam? It ruins their ma'alat adam, their intellect and their wisdom. What is it that we have over the animal kingdom? They eat, we eat. They sleep, we sleep. We walk, they walk. Okay? We have Netflix, they don't. Okay? But what's really the difference? That we are speaking people. We have the ability to speak, not communicate. Animals communicate. To speak. We have intellect. We have a concept of history, the concept of planning for a future. We also have the concept of grandchildren, great grandchildren, etc. Because by the animal kingdom, my understanding is I'm not a what do you call them? Zoologist, whoever studies animals. I'm not a zoologist, but I understand that within the animal kingdom, there's like the parent cares for the child, the baby, and that's it. There's no connection between the parent and the grandchild, grand monkey. In elephants, there's interesting. Well, elephants are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And you talk about memory of an elephant. It's true. You watch some of these. I've seen some of these, like a National Geographic thing on elephants, where you talk about when their owner dies, their baby dies. It's just absolutely amazing. Anyways, so Socrates is a famous line from Socrates, which I'm sure you've heard. An unexamined life is not worth living. It's lack of introspection, lack of reflection, lack of critical thinking. That's one of the differences between us and the animal kingdom. There's no concept of introspection and critical thinking. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there for them. That's all they're going to do. So for this reason, the Gemara in Brachot tells us, Sheina achat meshishim lemita. Sleep is like 1/60th of death. Now, that does not mean, but most of the people understand it to mean that it's the equivalent, like when the person's asleep, it's like the experience of 1/60th of death. You're not aware of what's going on. You're not, okay. But in this context, it's saying something different. It means that when a person's is sleeping and sleeping too much, and they're not participating in this world that they're supposed to, it's a tiny piece of death because they've taken part of their life away, but they should have been doing something else. In addition, a person who drinks too much, a person who's an alcoholic, who's drunk. By the way, you're never not, a person who's an alcoholic is never not an alcoholic. A person who's a drug addict is never not a drug addict. They are recovering alcoholic or recovering drug. You don't get over that. And the same is true when it comes to pedophilia, by the way. You do not cure it. It is non-curable. It is perpetually with them the rest of this person's life, and that's why they have to be monitored. And that's why Israel needs to have a registry of sex offenders. But I won't digress. Don't ask where that came from. Just was out there in my head. Also, hanging out, endless chit chat. Just there's nothing wrong with having conversations, or what the kids call them, DMCs, deep, meaningful conversation. Nothing wrong with that, especially if it's the hityatsut. You want to get in person's get some feedback. You want to understand? It's fine. I was talking about just constant, just wasted time talking about shtuyot and nothingness. Motzin et adam me'olam. Also, so what is this really, this part of the Mishnah telling us? The first half of the Mishnah, he said, I have to get something on my screen now. The first half of the Mishnah, he said, had to do with being a mensch. This half of the Mishnah has to do with something else. And that has to do with the concept of time. So I'm going to tell you a couple things about time before we look at the rest of this, a little bit more of the Mishnah. It seems like when I teach this class in particular, I tend to reminisce about things from my youth. When I was in high school, one of the many, I had, out of the 4 different years of English, all 4 of my English teachers were magnificent teachers. I learned a lot about English. I think in my junior year, I learned the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which you may or may not have heard of. It's very short. I'll just tell you one sentence because it's come in handy many times, and then I'll explain it. I'll give you the Rashi. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on, nor all your piety nor wit shall call it back to cancel half a line, nor all your tears wash out a word of it. Meaning, what's done is done. You can now. Not talking about tshuva, no, that's a different story. I'm just talking about if I hurt your feelings, I can apologize to you, but there's still going to be something there. I can't say I regretted going to that movie. I regretted buying that food. You can regret it, but it doesn't change the past. When I say you, I mean people. I mean you. When a person wastes time, and we all waste time, there's no question about it. Very, very few people you can really think about that just don't waste time. I know Reb Chaim Kanievsky, there's one of the things about him, that there wasn't a minute, a second that he wasted his day. Well, when you're awake from 2 a.m. to 11 p.m. the next night or 12 midnight, it's not much, and it's filled constantly. So what you do with your time, it's not coming back to you. You're not getting it back. There's, I have an old calendar at home. It's a 1987 calendar. It's not coming back. There's no more 1987 anymore. So I'm going to read something to you that, again, I'm sure some of you have heard of. And it has to do with the value of time. To realize the value of 1 year, ask a student who failed a grade. To realize the value of 1 month, ask a mother who has given birth prematurely. To realize the value of a week, ask the editor of a weekly newspaper. To realize the value of 1 hour, ask the lovers who are waiting to meet. To realize the value of 1 minute, ask a person who just missed the train. To realize the value of a second, ask someone who just avoided an accident. To realize the value of 1 millisecond, ask the person who won a silver medal instead of gold at the Olympics. Time is relevant. It really is. It's not just because Einstein gave us the theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. He also proved that you can never attain the speed of light because you need an unlimited amount of fuel, which is impossible. I know you're all probably excited about that. This is like, whoa, I learned something today about this. But in any case, time is critical because it's something we don't get back. If a person has money in the bank, let's say I have, making up a number now, I have no idea, but let's just say I have, thank God, more, 1,000 shekel in the bank. I have more than that, Baruch Hashem. Okay, 1,000 shekel in the bank. And let's say it's in the stock market. I don't even like looking anymore. In any case, let's say I have $1,000 in the stock market. And recently, it's now down to about $600. Oh man, no, it's only a paper loss. Oh man, whatever. You'll get it back. Something. And if you're not meant to have it, by the way, you're not going to have it, right? We know that as believing Jews, we know that whatever money we have at the end of the year was already determined at the beginning of the year, not taking into consideration whatever we spend on mitzvot, Shabbat, Chagim of that nature. It doesn't affect that. Okay, but what you lose, you can get back. I know more than one person. I know a few people who had it all, lost it all, had it all again. Okay, it happens. It doesn't work that way with time. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I was sick in quotes. I had a terrible cold. It was one that really knocked me out. And I even when I'm sick, I try to be productive, learn a little, try and write something, prepare a class. I couldn't do anything. It's just me and Netflix. And I'm sitting on the couch and thinking to myself, what a waste of time. It's not like, okay, now I was feeling better. It's like, okay, now I'm going to go back and get all that time back. No, it's gone. So part of what this Mishne is about is this second half is time. yes to the wine, and yes to this. So again, we have to still define what some of these things are, especially sichat yiladim, conversations of kids or with kids. But the main goal here is to understand what it is when he's saying that these things, but it's not just the issue of moderation now. It's also understanding what's your downside, what's the loss. I'm going to look at each of these four items and tell you what the downside is, what they mean and what the downside is. Shenasha shacharit, sleeping in the morning. Again, please do not walk out of here thinking I said don't sleep late ever. It's not what I'm saying, and I never would say something like that. Talking about perpetually. Hanging out, lazing around in bed, sleeping late. Well, what's the problem with that? Okay, so fine, you missed some time. I said time, you're not going to get it. As believing Jews, as religious Jews, whatever that means, we get up in the morning, we say Shema, and we say Shmona Esrei, or some form of davening, or some form of what used to be what's called Shas Tchina, or Tehillim, something, a connection with Hashem. But there are certain things, Al Pi Halacha, that we do by a certain time. Kriyat Shema, the Tefillah, Bini Shmona Esrei. So it's not just that I didn't, but okay, the guy's going to get up and start davening at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's not that I davened late. It's what did I do? First, I was mivatel mitzvah. I kind of negated a mitzvah that was supposed to be done at a certain time. In addition to that, I'm starting off my day with saying, I don't really care if I start my day off saying, good morning, Hashem, thank you for everything as early as possible or when I can. I'm pushing off the Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shemayim. I'm pushing off the acceptance. When we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that's called Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shemayim. I'm taking upon myself the yoke of heaven. I want to do the will of Hashem today, and I'm putting it off. Sometimes I try to make comparisons in that kind of relationship between us and Hashem to Zugiyut, or couples relationships. I kind of pictured Hashem saying to us in the morning, okay, I love you, Boker Tov, right? Imagine a mother trying to wake up a child or whatever, maybe a spouse, like, it's time to get up, time to go to daven, whatever it's doing. Okay, like, let's go. We have a great day ahead. We're going to do X. Okay. What's that? Its reflection is that I really don't care about what your plans are. I really don't. So in a sense, by saying we're going to sleep until the middle of the day, we're saying I'm pushing up Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shemayim. I really don't care. I'm going to push up Zman Tefillah. I really don't care. I'm going to put on Tefillin. Can put on all day, whatever it might be. And yes, a woman has a responsibility for a certain amount of Tefillah. A man has a certain amount of responsibility. Whatever the basic, even the minimal amount is. And I've had many people say, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was up all night. I was sick. What do I want to say? That's fine. It's legitimate. There's no problem. There's much you should say, much you don't say, but there's no awareness. It's a time you're not going to get back, and you lost out on these mitzvot at the right time. And it's not just another mitzvah. I'm going to read something to you. Rabbi Shimon says in Pirke Avot, we've read this already. It's in the second chapter. So Rabbi Shimon tells us we have to be very careful about Shema and Tefillah. These two mitzvot, mevatot yoter mikol hetiv hakesher shel adam im boro. These two mitzvot, Tefillah and Shema, really are the epitome of what our relationship is with Hashem. If a person's careful with them, then he'll have the zechut, the merit to grow in avodat Hashem. But if he's like, it's not that important, all his time is going to be wasted also. So we have this idea. Let me get this here. Okay, move up here. Okay. When it comes to Shena Shel Shacharit, let's talk about Yain Shel Tzahorayim. First, let's look at the positive. As I mentioned before, wine is a good thing. It makes a person happy, right? Again, certain people can't have it for various either health reasons or psychological reasons, whatever else it might be. But in general, wine is nice. I learned to like red dry wine and other wines as well. Only after you made Aliyah. Me, it was always the sweet, gross wine, but I learned differently. I like it. I usually sometimes have it on Shabbat, sometimes whatever. It makes no difference. You don't care. I don't care. Why do I waste my breath saying that? Because it's about me. It's all about me. You didn't know that. That's why I teach. It's to talk about me. Because I'm very humble. Humblest of all. There are many good things said about wine. By the way, it says it makes a person wiser. What else does it say? What else makes a person wiser? Avira de ara machkim. The Gemara tells us in multiple places that the air of Israel, the environment of Israel, makes a person wiser. And I will tell you 1,000,000,000% the truth behind that statement. I think that what I have been able to coalesce, it's about me again, but I've been able to coalesce and to learn it, to grow personally here since we made Aliyah. I'm sure you've all experienced this in one way or another. Head and shoulders about ending all my time years in Switzerland. It's been, and things come a little, not easier, but they're clearer. It's just the environment, being here. I sit with a student. I had one, today's Thursday, 2 days ago. And I've done this more than once with different students. We're sitting in Pnei Shmuel, and we're learning Sefer Yoshua, and it's talking about the war with Yericho. I said, okay, get up, let's go. We're going on a field trip. We're going to Yericho? No. Go down to the park, down the hill. I said, okay, look out that way. I said, what do you see? I said, I see houses. Very good. You know what's on the other side of those? If you keep going down, what? She says, you have friends in Mitzpeh Yericho, or they call it Mitzpeh? Yes, of course. I have plenty of friends there. Good. Why is it called Mitzpeh Yericho? I don't know. Think. What's Mitzpeh? Mitzpah. Let's see. So it's an overlooking Yericho. Oh, wait, Yericho's right there? That's the response usually. She says, yeah, it's in your backyard. So when you're learning Sefer Yoshua, and you're talking about the Yoshua came and they went around the walls, and then one day, the seventh day, 7 times, they all come tumbling down. I even played for them always. And the walls came tumbling down. They always think it's hokey. It happened right here. You could be there in 20 minutes. It brings it alive. So it says it about wine. Also, wine it says it's good for anxiety. It's actually brought in a couple places in Talmud. Mentions that. Especially a lot of wine, I guess. But as long as it's in moderation, imagine this again. What I'm about to say comes right out of the Sharim at the very beginning. Imagine that a doctor gives a person a prescription, not a subscription, a prescription, an RX, which is Latin for recipe, by the way. I don't remember the whole word. He gives a prescription to take. He's given a blister pack that has 10 pills of Tylenol with codeine because they need the pain medication. The guy's in pain, says, well, I'm supposed to take 1 a day. So I guess if 1 a day is good, all 10 at once has got to be great. Okay, how's that going to work out for you, as Dr. Phil would say, right? ER and all the bells and whistles literally come with that. No, the same thing is true with most things in life, in moderation. So if by midday, a person's day is just wine, or it could be any other alcoholic thing or any other time waster, but the wine is the classic that's used when it comes to sitting around. Tell you eventually how about the second that I don't want to forget. That becomes a problem. It also affects a person's concentration. In theory, if a person's going to learn, a person's going to, as a halacha, a kohen's not allowed to duchen when he's had too much to drink. A person's not allowed to daven, not when they're not drunk, when they've had, and this becomes a problem on Purim, by the way, that if you have a few shots, you're not allowed to daven. Even if it's not what's called shikoto shalot, the drunkenness of lot. You don't have to be that bad off. Just enough that you're a little bit, some say even just a revi'it, like basically a cup of wine, prevents a person from davening. Whether that's actually brought the halacha completely, I can't tell you. But a person, I'm just digress for a second in parentheses, there's a little known halacha. And I like finding these things. I heard about this someone asked me a question probably 20 years ago, and I never heard of it. So I looked into it, and it's a thing. You don't have a party where it's just wine and music. When you have just wine, let's say, for example, we want to have a wine tasting. For the ambiance, you want to have someone playing the violin in the background, you're not allowed to do that. Because you're taking the two things in the Beit HaMikdash that we can't put together right now. We don't have the wine libations in the Beit HaMikdash and the music of the Kohanim and the Leviim. Can't put them together by themselves. That's also part of the reason behind why during the 3 weeks you don't drink wine and you don't have music, especially during the 9 days, and meat because of the korbanot and the menachot and the wine that would come with it, and what else did I say? And music, again, because that's what we lost, and we don't want to kind of put it in our faces. See, this is what. So there was. I don't know how common it is, but there was a prohibition. I guess it's only in quotes in the old city, not when you don't play live music at a wedding. I know that there are some people who do that. Whether it's actually kept to, I don't know. I haven't been to too many weddings in the old city. In any case, so that's about that. What about Sichat Yiladim? That's the strangest one of all. So what is it really referring to? So is it talking about adults talking a lot with kids? Is it talking about parents and kids? God forbid. For sure not. Matter of fact, just the opposite is true. A parent needs to spend time with their child, and even if it's just babbling sometimes, because it creates a bond. Obviously, it doesn't want to have it there when they're in their 20s, 30s, and 40s or kids, and you're starting, we're just going to talk about shtuyot. But if a parent wants to talk to their kid about sports, talk about sports. You want to talk about Parshat Shuvah, talk about, have the connection, because I spend, because of my grandchild, I spend an inordinate amount of time in the park here. I see a lot of parents and children. And yes, you come to the park, so you just let the kids play and you can sit there and talk to your friends, which is absolutely fine. They need a break too. But sometimes when it's a little excessive, when parents just sitting there alone and they're just on their phone and they mommy, I want, and not talking about little kid, mommy this, mommy this, and then there's, or daddy. There's a break. There's like, mommy thinks that it's complete break time now, and sometimes they need it, right? But there are times when that connection, that lack of a conversation or attention becomes a problem. So we're not talking about that. Are we talking about adults talking to kids? Are we talking? So I'm going to give you one, two, three, I have three different answers or possibilities. It's adults who spend too much time playing with kids who are not their own, chit-chatting little kids. Okay. It's bittul Torah. It's sichat hevel. It's like a waste of breath. It's good in moderation. Nothing wrong. I mean, I try to talk to some, especially the teens in the neighborhood. I try to talk to them when I see them. There's nothing wrong with that. But me just to start sitting down with a couple of teens with absolutely zero goal other than just to waste time, that's not a good thing, I don't think. Baby talk. Like acting like a baby. It's funny once in a while, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. There are people who, like, everything's a joke. Everything's like babyish. Others see this as a charge in how to raise children. That when you do have conversations with the kids, it should be age appropriate. It's interesting. I have found over time when I've had a kid who will ask me a question, 8 years old, 9 years old, and as an adult, you want to answer up here. But you realize that, wait, I'm going to explain this, that all they need is something to hear, and that's fine. When grandma passed away, well, where is she? So for an 8-year-old kid, the answer is one thing, and for a 20-year-old adult, the answer is something else. You don't have to worry, there's Olam Haba, and we believe about this, and this Chibut HaKevra. No, she's with Hashem. Hashem is with her, protecting her. She's watching over us. Oh, cool. That's all. So it also means about how you have these sichot, how you have these discussions with children. Yeshivat Beit HaKnesset. Okay, what is Yeshivat Beit HaKnesset? I'm going to read something to you. This comes from Rav Lau, original recipe, Rav Yisrael Meir. Rav Yisrael Meir Lau, the original recipe. And he says as follows. I actually haven't translated it into English. This is easier for me to read it than it was to just do it from my head. It says in Mishne, he who walks with the wise shall become wise, but he who feeds on fools will suffer harm. That is, the society in which a person is present influences his state of mind and dictates his opinions on various matters. And it's true. We get influenced by people we hang out with, or we talk to, or we WhatsApp with. That's normal. For this reason, being in the company of people, the people of the land, is one of the things that takes a person, people of the land, amei haaretz, like boors, takes a person out of the world. People of such boors spend their time in idle talk about things that have no substance and express their opinion, the opinion of the average householder, on every subject in the world. There are people who think they have to have an opinion on everything, right? Absolutely everything. You're allowed to say, I don't know, or I don't have an opinion. That's my saying, not him. The conversation of Amei Haaretz is mundane talk that does not require Talmud, is entirely negation of the Torah. Likewise, idle chat drags a person down, and he gets used to being in the company of those who sit in the corners. That's an expression called Yoshvei Kranot. People sit in the corners. People just have nothing to do. It's wasting time. In light of the above, it might be said that the word synagogues mentioned in the Tana by the Tana, meaning it says Yavshvei Beit HaKnesset, are not synagogues intended for prayer or Torah, but rather a place for gathering. Beit HaKnesset just means that the kenes, which is the, how do you say it in English? Kenes, yeah, but it's more like you're going to a kenes, to a conference or something like that, right? So it's a gathering. The heat kanes, knisa, an entrance to a building. All this is in kaf nun samach. It's a shoresh. So Beit HaKnesset, which we use colloquially to mean a shul, but it's a place of gathering. It's a house of gathering. It's all it means. Is that meant like the other side, the in the yin yang, it's the yang. It's the opposite of a good place. Of course, we're not talking about things that are forbidden according to halacha. We're not talking about people sitting around talking lashon hara. That already is no good. Most types of entertainment, their declared purpose is to make a person forget the hardships of the day, to take him out of this world for a few moments. Therefore, it is no wonder that the regular people. Oh, what is it around here? Never mind. Forget the rest of this. Okay. I don't know what I'm reading here. Anyways, so that's what I'm sure you're all enthralled by Rav Lau's, my terrible translation. Anyways, so bottom line, this Mishnah, and this is true about pretty much everything. Things that we do that are good for us physically, emotionally, spiritually, putting Torah aside for a moment, I'll come back to that. Everything in moderation. You should say, well, I learned an hour today. That's moderation. That's good. That's all I need for today. Torah can become addictive too, by the way. Person can be, I've had it only a couple of times. I have to tell someone, you know what, leave the base medrash for a little bit. It's good. Take a walk, take a breather. But with the exception, with very few exceptions, there's no such thing as too much Torah, unless it's affecting, a person a guy who comes home is not home. I use a guy on purpose here. He's not home at all. At home, he's got 5 kids. His wife is just a mess. And he comes home from work, shovels his food, thanks, bye, and goes down to Daf Yomi. Then he's going to go to another shir. And by the time he comes home, the kids are asleep. That's not good. That's not acceptable, because your kids don't know who you are. Yes, you're good. They see you go to shul to learn. It's great, but not at the expense of helping your wife raise your kids and wife helping the husband. It's a partnership, and that has to be together. And not one. Yes, go to shul. Yes, go to work. Yes, go to learn Torah, but also not at the expense of the family where it could hurt. Shalom bayis. All right, we'll continue next week with Mishnah Yud Aleph Bezrat Hashem, and have a wonderful day. Pleasure.